LWD Laurence is the master key. This will be chapter 4, lesson 3. Doubt bars the way, but first a personal note. For those of you who love this book, this is my second copy. I don't know how long I've had it. Been in a fire. Came out pretty good. You can see it's a bit... that soot soaked into it. I had something else sitting on this. So that says the master key, by the way. Anyway, my first copy. I got it. I don't know. Late teens. Moved to New York City, took it with me. I looked through it. I saw what it contained. And it kind of scared me. I felt like there was something awesome about the material in the book. And I thought, I better just keep this book in my presence for a long time before I engage in anything in it. Put it to practice. I kept it around. Lived in places with no electricity, no running water, cold in the winter, burned candle. Talked with my best friend about subtle matters. We always had that book sitting there, right beside us. I felt connected to something. Just knowing that it was there, waiting for me. Then I took a closer look at it. And that is when I got introduced to what it takes to develop concentration. And that is when I became aware of how that might fit into everything that has turned into my channeling eventually now. I have often said that the primary tool to make any of this other material, any of the material here on my channel work for you, your primary tool is attention. Directed, willful attention. Focused. When that is accomplished with 100% laser beam clarity on a specific thing, that's concentration. The mind is like a wild horse, harder to tame than a wild horse, actually. Harder to tame than a hungry Bengal tiger in its native environment. I didn't make that up. This book is how to concentrate. This book is about that. Let's go. Chapter 4, lesson 3, doubt bars the way. We all know what glamour means. But it's one of the most difficult things conceivable to find it in ourselves. It's like turning the mind upon itself. One has read of persons trying to record the impressions made upon them after having used opium. A study in madness, in which the victim portrays the changes in consciousness as he began to pass out of the realm of sanity, illustrates this difficulty. Edgar Allan Poe pictures the same idea in a wonderful manner. It is so different to set to work on a material which is outside the worker to working on the worker himself. We use our eyes to see what is round about us, what is really outside them. If we can conceive turning the eye on itself, not another person's eye, and subjecting it to a minute anatomical dissection, we should get some notion of the task. Yeah, we sharpen a knife by bringing it into contact with another, so that though both blades were blunt before being brought together, they are so no longer. This glamour of the mind is regarded by some as a wise provision of nature to hide from us our deficiencies and shortcomings from ourselves, to soften and assuage the pain which the discovery would awaken. But only the weak now would ever be content to accept such an anodyne. Its action, like that of all anodynes, is to deaden, stupefy, stunt, and dwarf. Therefore, to lead to involution instead of evolution. Glamour may be necessary at certain stages in the growth of the ego, but it is decidedly not so when a man begins to take himself in hand. And the man who is anxious to know how to concentrate does not usually rest there. It is a means to an end. And that end is the bringing forth of all the powers latent in man and using them to the fullest extent. The old man of the sea. Doubt possesses in a remarkable degree this quality of glamour. It is like the old man of the sea in one sense. We carry it about on our backs, even when we know we have it, deluding ourselves with the idea that we must always bear the burden. But at a prior stage of excrescence, the excrescence is there, and we know it not. This constitutes the insidiousness of the thing. We really entertain this mental visitor, this alien, doubt, without knowing it. We start a movement, so to speak, and as everyone knows, once a thing is set going, one never knows where it's going to stop. In fact, once begun, a thing acquires a momentum of its own. When we deal with forces, it's not like dealing with dead things. A stone thrown from the hand will travel until the force which actuated it is spent and it falls to the ground. It's mechanical. It lacks the life which force possesses. And even though a stone has life, only not sufficiently developed to the point we find in the case of a vital force. A force contains the elements of self-initiation. That is to say, it has potentialities. It has, as it were, life behind it. So that when we start it off, it has the faculty of going on through its own volition. We get some idea of this in the problem of a perpetual motion, which has exercised the minds of the greatest thinkers of all ages. They've tried to create some device which, once set going, would continue to move for all eternity. As a result, some clever mechanical apparatus have been invented, things which would wind themselves up and then run down, showing the idea of a something existing in the universe which pulsed with primeval life. Well, it does exist, too. The atom is an example of it. It's a vortex of perpetual force and movement, which cannot be destroyed, but which may be altered as regards direction. And this is the practical bearing it has for us. So long as the mind exists, it must work. True, we can cease thinking for brief spaces of time, but they are very brief indeed. Whether we like it or not, the mind will go on functioning, and if we do not provide it with the work, it will find work for itself. In this way, doubt will be accepted as something for the mind to pit itself against. Doubt bars the way to accomplishment. To seek to concentrate a mind in which doubt has a state. It's like trying to extract the maximum worth and brightness from a fire grate which is choked with ashes and piled up with rubbish as well. What avail is the best coal when put on such a fire? If we give the fire time, all the rubbish will probably burn up, but this will require too long a period, and we cannot get the best out of our fire whilst it is in this state. A mind which harbors doubt is a mind which is confused. And this confusion is not always apparent to its possessor. You can only secure the fullest use of a power by its being unfettered by others, and only by the fullest use, by using 100%, do you achieve anything worthwhile. When forces are divided, there's a leakage of power, and one force neutralizes another. When in a big crowd of people, one half wants to go in just the opposite direction to what the other half is going, many times the power is necessary, and pushing through, this power is utterly thrown away. It leaves the man with less power for whatever purpose he may need it. If you would concentrate with ease, you must clarify the mind first. You must throw overboard much which you deemed essential to its well-being. Doubt, for one thing, must be shown to the door. The ructions created in a mind by this soul-destroying negative, which is really a reflection and has no solid existence, are gigantic, and accounts for many people having such average minds. Many will find much in their mental makeup that is only a useless burden, and they should drop it. The student should dwell from time to time on the idea that because he thinks and actually believes he can improve his power of concentration, he really can. While engaged in clarifying the mind, you will do well to consider some of the laws of the mind, its modes of working, character of thought. The mind is like a bottled-up volcano, full of immense forces, only, unlike its physical prototype, it is under lock and key, or under control. The control is unconscious, however, just as the mind's powers usually are. The lid comes off when the mind is unhinged, when there was a want of balance, and the most brilliant genius has paid the penalty of not understanding the forces he has created or developed. If we would control it, we must seek to understand it. I have referred to the intense activity of the mind, the fact that it is never still, but always moving like a large crowd, a number of which wish to go in various directions. Why do not people train the forces of their minds so that they will all work in one direction, and thus ensure harmony, a oneness of goal, thereby avoiding much needless friction and waste of brain energy, of which such a large amount is generated? One might imagine a juggler endeavoring to keep 20 balls in the air at one time. So long as he had each ball in his hand, he would have full control of it. But as soon as it left his hand, he would be unable to alter its course. He would simply have to wait till it returned to his hand. And sometimes it would not even do this, but fall to the ground. The man who had never practiced juggling would find it would take him all his time to keep 3 balls in the air at one time. And this illustration will exemplify to some extent the problem we are considering here. The balls would well stand for the tendencies of the mind. These tendencies would be absolutely under our control while lying inert, but once we set them going, they would be out of hand until the force endowing them had been spent. By one of the laws of the mind, a tendency has a faculty or a leaning to multiply itself. Just as a snowball, when set rolling, gathers more snow and becomes a huge globe. Undesirable tendencies must therefore be controlled, checked, directed when they will help, instead of hindering our growth. Reverting to glamour once more, we see that it has a constructive side. It enables us to view with equanimity the pinpricks of daily life, as well as the really great troubles, the disappointments and trials, which make so large a part of lives of some people. When one lives in squalid surroundings, in dirty, dark manufacturing districts where beauty is a stranger, with people who do not embody many of the virtues in their composition, we may transform as by magic the disharmonious elements, seeing everything through a rose-tinted atmosphere. The sting is thereby removed, and we look with complacency on circumstances and people alike. Such an attitude helps much to gain the upper hand of hurry, to which reference has been made. It is the investing of the daily life with romance, which has no need to be less in evidence than it was in the past, when chivalry and the idealizing tendency were so largely in evidence. Every adjunct which leads to the raising of the mind, which takes it from so-called realities of existence, aids us in our task of learning to concentrate. Well, chapter 5, lesson 4, the great gospel of optimism. And that'll be in the next video. See you then. LW Laurence, the Master Key.